Lucas Sports. So I just got done watching Gill's Arena podcast, and he had Rich Paul on there. And then, for those who don't know, Rich Paul's CEO, founder of Clutch Sports, and he has people like LeBron, Ben Simmons, John Wall, Anthony Davis, just to name a couple. Well, he had an hour plus interview. I thought it was a good interview. Y'all check it out on Gill's Arena's podcast. We talked about several different things. A couple of things he talked about was he talked about how Anthony Davis and Draymond Green signed uh, really good deals, but he also just talked about how there was people who were second round draft picks that he's did that had good deals, like B.J. Boston for one, and I forget the other. I think it was Chris Livingston, number 58 pick, I believe he said. But he talked about how he has a good deal for a second round draft pick. He also talked about they also talked a lot about his success, and he talked about the things he was able to do. Then he said that if he was David Falk, it would be a line, and David Falk was Michael Jordan's agent, and he was the number one agent in the NBA for quite some time. I actually had to agree with that. I think we all know why, and I mean he said it as well, but it's that we don't want to support our own, but and he also talked about doing collaborations. Like, how come other companies can do collaborations, but when it comes to agents and things like that, they can't. So then, of course, they bring up the Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant. I mean, excuse me, Michael Jordan, LeBron comments gets brought up. He talked about that as well, and he said that the difference, like one of the main difference between Kobe and Mike versus LeBron was LeBron's more accessible, and I've always said that Kobe and Mike was mysterious. You only see them every blue moon when they wasn't playing the game. If they did an interview, you spotted them out at a game, it was a huge deal. Versus LeBron, he's honestly the first athlete that I can remember in a long time. I know Babe Ruth was kind of like a regular guy, but he's the person where you look up. And for those who don't remember Babe Ruth, the baseball of the early 20th century. But LeBron is that kind of person where you look up and you might see him at the game, and you hear you have a security, but it's like, oh wow, but that's LeBron. But Mike and Kobe, and Rich probably even said this: the more distance you are, though, the more people want to know about you. They're drawn to you. Mike and Kobe, because they were so quiet, people wanted to know more about them. And when you saw them, it was like you seen a ghost. Whenever you saw Mike, people would just stop and stare in awe because I mean, if he wasn't at a game, you wasn't really gonna catch him like that. And he, like I said, he would do a couple of interviews here and there, Oprah and all of that, but he wouldn't just you. He wasn't that accessible. Versus in the Bronze era, the Millennial generation, he was the first athlete to have 24 coverage and really be squeaky clean off the court. Um, and then he talked about how people say, well, LeBron won 4 rings, yeah, but look how many finals he's went to, and I've said that as well. And I'm still making that series on why you can't compare the two. LeBron and Mike, man, they're different people. They do things totally different. And they both are, as he said as well, considered GOATs. Like, it's hard to really just say one. Like, I would say that Mike is my favorite player, but from Illinois, grew up watching the Bulls play. But I can't deny somebody that's the Gen Z to say LeBron's not their favorite player. And then both of them had impact on the game. However, what LeBron was able to do while he was playing, like starting his own school, um, leaving, taking his talent somewhere else. He was the first real agent to do, the first real player to do that in his prime. Superstar player. I mean, I know Chris Webber did it after what, a year? I think at Golden State, but he wasn't like a bona fide superstar. He said that, LeBron was the first player that had $100 million sneaker deal. Nobody else has had it. I know it's rumors LaMelo did, but yeah, people not getting sneaker deals like that anymore. And they went to talk about the shoe deals. He said that the shoe deals is, well, as I just said, the shoe deals have changed, and how the younger generation, like the Gen Z era, and moving forward, they don't have a brand loyalty, and that's actually true because I see it all the time. I got nieces, nephews, and kids. They don't care about necessarily having Jordan. They want to have slides or Vans or Nike Dunks. Versus when I was coming up, it was like you had to have the Jordans or you had to have the T Max, and some people was more brand loyal. Like I know people who only wore Jordans. It was people who only wore Air Force Ones. People who only wore the Adidas and the T Max. People who only wore the Reeboks. And look at Fat Joe. Fat Joe, Fat Joe's basically a Nike signee. Like the only thing you ever see Fat Joe wearing is Air Force Ones and rare Jordans. But they just talk about that. He also said he got a book coming out, Lucky Me, and he just talked about how he works with athletes and how people basically Chris Paul he ain't taking no pay cut. How other agents is, and I actually feel him on that. Like he said, and this can apply for all of us. We want to be cheap when it comes to something helping build us, but we'll spend money on food and designer clothes and shoes and things like that. So I just thought it was an overall interview. And also one more thing I forgot to mention, yeah, sneaker companies are going to, they're signing people like Jack Harlow, Travis Scott. You see Kanye had his sneaker out. Um, Pharrell, Pusha T had that sneaker with Adidas. Like they're more going towards that. Like he said, the lifestyle shoes. So this is crazy. I guess that's how I know I'm getting older. And maybe some of y'all who listening too is because you remember back in the day, you had to have Jordans was pretty much the everything. You had a pair of Jordans on, it didn't matter where you was going, you was that guy. But yeah, just a quick overall interview. He also said he thinks he's the best agent ever. I mean, hey, he's one of them. But what do y'all think? What y'all think? Do y'all think that you can't compare LeBron and them? Do y'all think Rich Paul's biased? What y'all think?